This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome to this week's Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are live here in the studio this week. We are also live on both Facebook Live, so you can join us there, or you can join us on Zoom. Zoom has been a great supporter of the show. They provide us the use of the Zoom tools in order to bring the guests in. You can also hop over onto Zoom and actually be part of the audience. You can also ask your questions on Facebook Live. The best way to do that, go to killerinnovations.com/live, and you'll be presented with all of the different options in order to choose whatever's best. And you can do that from your laptop, your desktop, your mobile phone, your tablet, pad. All of the live features are available across all those platforms. So if you're out and about, you can actually join. Number of our stations are available across a whole wide range of mobile apps. We're now carried on 35 stations, or you can go over to thekillerinnovations.com/live, click on the Biz Talk Radio button, and that is actually just the live audio stream coming from the show as it's sent out to all of the stations that carry us live on Sunday. And many of you don't know, but we are actually rebroadcast on Saturdays. So so you can, if you want to get up really early because it's like some ungodly hour on a Saturday morning, you can also listen to us. We promote that primarily for the European fans who want to listen to the show live for some reason. They can do that. It's late morning or more like noonish time, Central European time on Saturdays. So last week we shared that we have now carried on 35 stations. We got picked up new stations in Florida, 2 stations in Texas, St. Louis, Missouri, and we're continuing to add those on as part of the work that we're doing, trying to spread the word around innovation, creativity, and design. Now, if you recall back a couple of weeks in this show, we talked about, or I had took a question that I've gotten via email from a fan with regards to innovation career opportunities for those that are not technical. If you didn't hear that podcast or go back to the show archives, you can go over to killerinnovations.com and listen to those. And since then, I guess people didn't really believe that I would answer listener questions live on the show. We have started to get some more questions. So today's show, we're going to take another question, which actually is a really interesting question given some of the things that I have going on outside of just the normal radio show and my day job as a CEO, etc. So we're going to spend this week answering, again, one question from one listener. And the question boils down to really around innovation and charities. Innovations that have social impact, that do social good. And so let me maybe set the foundation here so we're all talking about the same kinds of terms. When you define as a charity, and in the U.S. they're classified as a 501c3. In the UK they have a different term. Rest of the world they have different terms. But really, when you think about a charity, something that's going to take money and give it to help people, it's around social impact. And how do you improve or reach out or solve a social issue through this whole process of this impact? So in this case, there's a lot of different ways to describe this. You could focus on things like social innovation. So social innovation, in my definition, is really an innovative solution to a social problem. That could be health, education, homelessness, abuse, all kinds of different areas. You can also talk about it in the form of social entrepreneurship, or social enterprise. And these are organizations, whether they're an enterprise, meaning it's part of a much larger organization, or social entrepreneurship, somebody is starting a business with a social focus. In this case, there's also a variety of different ways to do that. In the past, you could set up another nonprofit that provides the social impact or social good. Nowadays, what people have rightly have come to the conclusion on is the fact that you can do social good and it's just good business. It's not that, just the feel good and the pat on the back and get that warm fuzzy feeling. It really is about the fact that if you do good, it's good for business. And so social entrepreneurs, and in fact, I'm involved over at the Unreasonable Institute, mentoring the entrepreneurs there. We'll talk a little bit about some of those. And there's an old show in the archive where I actually interviewed the founders of Unreasonable and including some of the entrepreneurs there. Unreasonable started off as being charities related to social good. And in the second year of that program, they switched it to entrepreneurship for social good. Because it proved out that the fact that you could actually create a business model that created a successful business that was focused on doing the right thing, that was going to be focused on having a positive impact and solving and addressing a social issue that we have as a society. Now, there's a couple of different challenges on that. We're going to talk a little bit later. I'm going to get into more detail because there's a lot of things like what they call B Corps or benefit corporations, organizational structures if you want to have a social entrepreneurship piece. But the other topic that I also want to talk about, though, is innovating charity. So, look, if you're listening to this show, since you're listening to this show, you obviously have a passion and an interest in innovation and in creativity and solving problems and helping the organization that you're with become better and come up with new kinds of products and services and create and invent that next great thing. At least if that's not you, then I'm not quite sure why you're listening to the show, but I'm confident that's you. So the question challenge I have is applying that to a charity, finding a charity that you're interested in. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. But again, what I'm doing here is I'm just wanting to lay kind of the groundwork so we had a common understanding of the terms of charity, which is focused on social impact, social innovation, which is that whole process of innovating a solution to address a social issue. There's social entrepreneurship, so startup that's focused on being a business that's focused on a social issue and doing it as a for-profit business. There's social enterprise, so you got a large organization that may have a subsection that's focused on social work, like at HP when I was there, we launched Hacking Autism, which is a nonprofit I now run, but we launched that as something inside of Hewlett Packard. And then there's innovating charity. So charity is a social impact issue, social innovation, social entrepreneurship, social enterprise, and then innovating on charity. And what I'm going to talk about in the last segment of the show is I believe that there are some trends that we're seeing in the for-profit business that can be applied to charity. So giving you, if you're involved in a charity or you want to apply your skills, given that you're listening to this show, you're obviously passionate about innovation, I want to arm you with some trends that if you're involved in a charity or you want to get involved in a charity, you can use your interest, passion, and skills of creativity to go help that charity do something pretty amazing. So we're going to talk about that in the fourth segment. So you're not going to want to go anywhere until we cover that. Now, there are lots of examples of what I would call very innovative charities that are already out there. The one that I'm most interested in is one called Community Voicemail for the Homelessness. Old technology. Look, we've had voicemail forever. Most of us would love to get rid of our voicemail. But if you're homeless, you don't have a phone number, you can't go get a job. You can't really sign up for benefits. You can't have anybody call you back. And so, therefore, that's just one example of some very, looking at old ways and applying it to new things. And there's been, Kiva Microfinance has been another one that I've been a big fan of, particularly given my work in Africa. So there are a lot of creative charities out there. We're going to talk about the whole range of social innovation through the rest of the show today. And again, in that fourth segment, I want to share with you specifically some ideas with regards to the trends that you can apply. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to be right back. I got to go pay a few bills here, but when we come back, we're going to pick up our conversation on charity and innovation around solving the social challenges that we're facing today. So don't go anywhere. Be part of the solution. Ask your questions. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
BizTalkRadio.com.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome back to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are talking today around innovating charities, really around innovating and solving the social challenges that we all face on a global basis. So in the first segment, we talked about things like charity being really focused on social impact and what are all the varieties of different innovation approaches to that, that including social innovation, meaning actually going through the innovation process focused on solving a social challenge, social entrepreneurship, starting a business whose primary focus is to address or solve a social need, social enterprises, large organizations that may have a part of their organization focused on a social need or a social challenge. And then just innovating the charity. How do you help come up with better ideas around charity organizations, and how do you make them more effective in helping them solve the social needs that they're going after? In this segment, we're going to focus on social innovation. This is specifically around innovating specifically for social impact. Now, like all innovation, the big challenge in this category is going beyond the obvious. We tend to look at other charities, other social goods, NGOs, or non-government organizations that are out there trying to solve a social issue around the world. But we're caught in this cookie cutter approach where if you go out and you look at, let's say water programs, bringing fresh water to remote parts of the world, or dealing with abandoned children or homelessness, you'll find that the programs around each of those social goods tends to kind of fall into the same trap over and over and over again. And so in this case, the key, if you're going to come in and do truly what I would refer to as social innovation, it's doing the non-obvious. Go beyond what everybody else is doing and find out what that is. Now, one of the ways you can do that is either you have a passion for a particular problem. In my case, I have two nonprofits that we support, and any revenue and monies we get from sponsorships for this show, or any money we make at innovation.tools, the store, the e-commerce store that we run for innovators, or any of my author royalties go to one of two charities. One of them is Pioneer Education, which is building a school as a prototype school, and we're building it in Africa just because of easier to get it done there. But a whole new curriculum on entrepreneurship and innovation, preparing the next generation to compete in the creative economy. The second one is Hacking Autism, which I've been involved in since 2008, 2009 now. So I've been involved in that one for quite some time. But both of those, we focus a lot on innovation and doing it in a different way, finding a way to kind of break out the mold of how everybody else does, building a school, launching a school, paying for scholarships, or autism, and all the different autism groups. We are focused on doing it differently, going beyond that first obvious, this is the way everybody else does it. And the same applies, whether it's you're trying to innovate your business, you're trying to innovate a charity, it's the same challenge. And that is not to get caught in that rut and just do it the same way that everybody else does it. Now, one of the challenges in charities in many cases is the lion's share of the workforce are volunteers, right? So they may be, dipping in and out and going off and doing something else. But in reality, you've got to treat it like a business. You've got to get them engaged. They've got to own the areas that they're responsible for. You got to drive innovation through an organization, whether that's a charity or whether that's a business. There is no difference. Now, the one question I got in this email from a listener around innovating around social issues or innovating, helping charities become more innovative is should there be a different process? And the answer is no. It's actually the exact same process. So the process I teach is around what I call the FIRE framework: focus, ideation, ranking, and execution. The only difference is in the focus. How do you define the problem statement? How do you define what the real need is? Or put it into another term, how do you create the BHAG? How do you define this really overarching kind of objective that you have for this charity or for this social program? And then how do you use that as a rallying cry to get ideas coming in to go attack them? Now, some examples of BHAGs on the social innovation charity side is there's a program in India to get rid of cooking oil or getting rid of coal and going to cooking oil, right? Trying to get rid of the black smoke by burning coal in people's houses, clean up the air, less respiratory problems. Or there's been, BHAGs written, around water, have fresh water available within a 30-minute walk for everybody within the country. And so the key is to create a BHAG or a bold, hairy, audacious goal that not only the staff of the charity or the NGO or whatever the organization is, and the volunteers and the contributors can get excited about and can rally around. And these has got to be a stretch goal. It can't be, okay, we're going to serve an extra, 100 families. It's going to be, we're going to do something radically and change juvenile hunger in a given county or something like that. So create the BHAG, but once you've defined that up front, that focus area, then the process is the exact same thing. Go through your ideation, rank it, and then drive that execution. And have, and be as focused on execution. Lots of times charity organizations get the scraps that are left over from our day. We're tired. We've put in a full day work. We've got family obligations, and we treat charities in some cases like kind of second class organizations. They kind of get whatever energy level we got left. If you're going to commit, and I'm asking every listener, I'm asking you, given that you're listening to the show and you're passionate about innovation and creativity, bring that expertise, bring the skill sets that you have in this space to a charity that you're passionate about or that you're involved with. They need the help. They need the new ideas. You've got it. Engage, drive it, teach it. And if you need help in putting together a workshop or whatever, drop me an email. I'll send you slides. I'll help you out. This is important. We need to raise the ideas and the way we're dealing with the social issues that we're facing in today's world. And you are a way to get that done. So social innovation, solving problems that we're facing today. So stay tuned. We're going to continue on in this conversation. In the second half of the show, we're going to take another quick commercial break. And again, if you're on Facebook Live, drop us a question. We'll answer those questions during the commercial break. But stay right there. We're going to be right back. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network.
BizTalkRadio.com.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome back to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are picking up our conversation around creativity and innovation and its impact on social issues and charities and the such. So we're going to pick up in segment 3 talking about social entrepreneurship and the social enterprise. Now, depending on the organizational structure of a business, I've been working a lot with social entrepreneurs. These are people who want to create a business, but with a social focus. They're addressing a social impact. One entrepreneur was solar-powered LED lights into homes throughout Africa. The social target that they were focused on was addressing the fact that once it got dark, the kids that were in school can't really read or study. They're stuck trying to read next to the fire or by candle or some other means, safe or unsafe, to try to finish up their schoolwork or to read or to expand on their education. Others have been businesses, for-profit businesses, such as Rising Tide Car Wash in Florida, where it's a very well-run business, doing quite well, but the social focus for them was that all of the line staff, the people who are actually washing the cars, are on the autism spectrum. And so therefore, the 100% of their staff at the line level are all those that have autism. And so it creates an employment opportunity for that community that has an 81% unemployment rate here in the United States. And so the studies have now showing that social entrepreneurship is actually just good business. In the case of Rising Tide, if you talk to the founders and the management team there, they did it because in this case, the father and the son who started it, there was another one of the children in the family had autism, and they were looking for what kind of work opportunities they would have for them. And they started it with a heavy social focus, but the community has rallied around it, realizing what they're doing, and have had such a great experience of having their cars taken care of at Rising Tide that business is going really great, and they're just about to open up their second car wash there in Florida. So look up Rising Tide. Tom and his family doing a killer job down there. But that's an example of a for-profit business that's run like a normal business that has a social focus. Now, the challenge we have and I'm going to speak specifically to the U.S., but a lot of it applies on a global basis. Depending on the organizational structure, did you sign, if you're creating a business, are you creating it as a C Corp, an S Corp, an LLC? These are all technical terms. Talk to an attorney. I'm not one. I just play one on radio with regards to how you organize it. Now, what's unique about corporate law in the United States is that when you use any of those organizational structures, as management team, if you've taken in shareholders, you've raised money, your number one obligation is to the shareholder. Your number one obligation is not your employees. Your number one obligation is not to any underlying mission of the business. Your legal fiduciary responsibility is to the shareholders. It's part of what I complain about in the fact that it's forced a lot of companies, particularly those that are public, to get caught on this quarterly treadmill of reporting their quarterly results. In the case of social innovation, this becomes a real challenge. Your obligation is not your social mission. Your obligation is to the shareholders. Now, in recent years, there has been some changes in this model around what's called a B Corp. There's another form of it called a benefit corp. A B Corp and a benefit corporation are not the same thing. There's some slight variations, so you want to talk to an attorney. But what's different about a B Corp or a benefit corporation is that your number one objective is that mission, that social focus. The shareholders become secondary. And so therefore, It allows the management team, it allows the organization to really define and focus and deliver on the social mission. Now, let's be honest. If you focus so much on the social mission that you run a bad business and you don't give some form of a return back to your shareholders, you're not going to raise any money. You're not going to get any support. So you've got to do a little bit of the balancing act. But a B Corp or a benefit corp could allow you to get that focus to go after and drive to the that objective of the social mission that you are so passionate about. So now the question is where do you find investors who are willing to invest in social entrepreneurship or social innovation? What you're looking for is not the traditional venture capitalists. What you're looking for are investors who are focused on what's called social impact investing or impact investing. These are people who put money into, again, even very high risk opportunities, but their mental model is not around getting venture returns. They're looking for some form of market return on those dollars, but they also are looking for the social impact side of it also. Now, over the years, I've been an angel investor. I started angel investing back in 2000, 2001 in early stage startups. Over the years now, I have shifted 100% of my investment to be impact investing. So I only invest in companies that have some form of a social drive to their existence. So for instance, I'm the lead investor and chairman of the board for Lakeside Fish Farms. So Lakeside Fish Farms is in Rwanda. It's the largest fish farm in Rwanda and one of the largest in sub-Saharan Africa. And the mission there was job creation, was to create economic growth in that region. Now, my objective for that investment is different. In fact, I've told the CEO at Lakeside that I will not pull any of my money out of that investment for 35 years. That's right, 35 years. Why 35 years? Because more than likely, I'm going to be dead by the time the 35 years are up. And I jokingly tell my kids that, guess what? This will be your problem. And I'm only looking for market returns. This is how I brought in the 21 investors who invested in Lakeside. They're not looking for 3 to 5 times their money. They're looking for kind of that 6 to 8% return over time. It's high risk, right? Being an entrepreneur in a developing country with a social mission, it's very, very high risk. But you get comfortable with that. And if there is a return, in my mind, it's knocked it out of the park if it can return 6 to 8% a year on average for the return on that investment. But I've spent a lot of time in Rwanda. I've seen the impacts that that particular program has had, and at some point we can get into it and talk more detail specifically about it. But you've got to find, and there are a lot of us, these impact investors, such as me and a bunch of others, who are willing to invest in social entrepreneurship, businesses that have a social drive to them to give market returns, not needing venture returns, but understand the risk that's involved in that. And so the other way that you can actually drive it, even if you don't have the money to do your own investing, is doing what I call an SRI. It's basically socially responsible investing. So if you've got a social mission or a social objective, or you're against some activities that are happening, you can actually go and find SRI funds, mutual funds, those kinds of investments, and you can actually steer your investment dollars towards a particular social mission you have or away from a social mission. So don't stand there and think, well, Phil's had a very successful career. He's obviously got the money. He can make these kinds of investments. All of our actions have some form of ripple effect. So if you're not doing it, talk to your investment advisor around socially responsible investing, because that's one way that you can drive that influence. So again, there's lots of legal mumbo jumbo around organizational structures. If you want to be a social entrepreneur, if you want to create a business to address the social challenges, talk to a good attorney, ask about a B Corp or benefit corp. And at the same time, go out and raise that money, find the people who are aligned with that mission of yours, and focus on that impact investing. So stay right there. We're going to continue on in the next segment. I'm going to share with you some tips around that are happening in the business world that I think have an impact on charities that you can take into your charity or a new charity that you're going to help them innovate and give you a little spark for some ideas. So stay right there. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
BizTalkRadio.com.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Well, welcome back to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are picking up our conversation this week around charities and innovating charities and social innovation, social entrepreneurship, and the social enterprise. So if you're joining us right now in the fourth segment, you're driving in your car, make sure you pick up the podcast. Podcast comes out each Tuesday early morning. We typically like to try to get it out really early for East Coast U.S. Listeners so they can have it on their drive in the morning. But you want to sign up for the podcast, go over to iTunes. You can go over to Google Play. You can go over to a variety of different places and subscribe to the show. So in this segment, I'm going to talk specifically about the case where you've been listening to the show. You more than likely have read, my blog post. Maybe you've been listening to me for quite some time. I'm talking to you specifically. You have the skills and the ability to address and help innovate social solutions. Whatever the social solution that's got you excited, don't let your skills just sit behind the desk in your day job. Spread those skills out. Help those organizations go and address the social needs that they have within their organization. The challenge is that most charities, most nonprofits, most NGOs get so stuck in the way they've done things, they're going to do it the exact same way for 20 years. You and I both know that the reality is that if you are doing the same thing the same way, you're dead. The same that happens in the commercial world happens in the nonprofit, charity, NGO world. So it's our job, yours and mine's job, is to have an influence on those charities to change it up and bring together a high level of creativity, human ingenuity, innovation to not only step up the effectiveness of the solution to solve the social problem, but to also make the organization more impactful. So I'm going to share with you some trends that are happening in the commercial world that I think can be applied to most every charity out there or every social business that's out there that has a social focus. So I'm going to assume that you're going to take the challenge I just gave you and get up out of your chair and go out there and bring your innovation, bring your creativity skills to the charities that you're passionate about. And with that, I'm going to seed you with some ideas that you can take into whatever charity you're involved in, whatever nonprofit you're involved in, whatever social entrepreneurship program you're involved in. Okay? Are you ready? Number one, look, if you go to Amazon, you're going to buy in a commercial world, the value of trusted recommendations, right? You go to Yelp, and you've got 5 restaurants, but one of them's got 5-star rating from 400 reviews. I'm going to bet that that's the restaurant you're going to go eat at. Charities don't look at that kind of validation, the trusted recommendation, to be a source to improve their fundraising. So ask whatever involvement or whatever charity you're involved in, how do you get that trusted recommendation? What's the equivalent of a trusted recommendation in order to bring more supporters to whatever your mission or objective is? Okay, so that's number one. Number two, today's business world, we like to think about it as customers for life. It's much easier to keep a customer than to acquire a new customer. The same for donors. In many cases, we take the donation in, we make sure we're compliant with any legal requirements in the country we operate in, right? And we may send out a newsletter every once in a while, but we don't think about them merely as a customer. How would you change the model in whatever charity you're involved in order to create this donor for life, supporter for life kind of model, similar to what's happening in the business world? Okay. Number three, this ties into what in the marketplace today we refer to as content marketing. In my case, it's this podcast, it's the blog post every week or twice a week over at philmckinney.com. It's the book excerpts that I'm posting over at beyondtheobvious.com from my book, the materials we make available for free download, or the book materials we have over at innovation.tools. We try to make it relevant and we try to make it personalized. The same for your donors. Think about a content marketing strategy that is relevant and personal. You may have donors in different categories. They're really, really, really about the social program. They're really, really like personal stories about the people who are impacted. Or they're really, really focused on, the mechanics of how you're actually running the business. And so in that case, how do you create that content? How would you craft those different kinds of stories to be relevant and personal to the supporters of your nonprofit? The last one I'm going to share is trust is currency. We've seen a lot of press and a lot of negative press around certain charities because someone's ripped it off, or embezzlement, or the person at the top walked away with dollars, or people who are at the top who are getting paid lots and lots and lots of money, where that money could be used for the programs that are in place, right? Trust is currency. We've seen this, for instance, with most recently a major bank where the employees were doing something wrong and they laid off 5,500 employees and the CEO of the bank lost their job. Trust is very hard to earn, very fast to lose by one misstep. So the question for you on that one is are you doing enough? Are you transparent enough and building up that trust and putting the checks in place to make sure that you've got that trust aligned? So these are just some of the trends that I've seen in the marketplace that I think all nonprofits, all charities, all social innovation programs should have in place. And so therefore, I hope you can take those as sparks and take those into whatever charities you're involved in. We're going to wrap up today's show. Thank you for joining. If I could ask for one favor, run over to iTunes, give us a review. Helps get the word out about the show, plus it's a feedback mechanism. If you've got a question that you would like to hear addressed in a future show, drop me a note, phil@killerinnovations.com, and we'll address that show. We'll address that coming up. And with that, we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
The opinions you hear on Biz Talk Radio are those of the hosts, callers, and guests, and do not necessarily reflect those of this station, Biz Talk Radio, its management, or advertisers. The information on Biz Talk Radio does not constitute a recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or service. If you have any questions about Biz Talk Radio, contact us at 817-274-1609 or at biztalkradio.com. biztalkradio.com.
Autism. 1 out of every 68 children in America are impacted across every race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic group. If you aren't directly affected, someone you know is. Today's world doesn't support those on the autism spectrum. It needs hacking for us to truly welcome those who think and create differently than ourselves. We're Hacking Autism, a nonprofit charity with a mission to hack therapy, technologies, and career opportunities that improve the personal and professional lives of people on the autism spectrum. We believe that everyone can play a role in supporting those on the autism spectrum so that they can show their unique talents and abilities in this fast-paced world. You aren't powerless in this fight. Use your gifts and talents to make a positive impact. Join us in making a difference. Go to hackingautism.org to learn more.
Carpenters have their hammers and saws, chefs have their outfitted kitchens, and musicians have their instruments. A craftsman's ability to do their job is dependent on having the right tools. So where does an innovator, someone who takes an idea and makes it real, find the right tools to do their job? Outfit your innovator's garage by visiting innovation.tools. Innovation.tools is an online store created by innovators for innovators. It's where you will find tested and proven tools to help you create that next great product or service. These tools include books, audio training, video training, brainstorming how-tos, and much, much more. And for a limited time, listeners of Killer Innovations will get 25% off on your first order by using the discount code RADIO at checkout. And 100% of our profits from your purchases will be donated to charity. So go to innovation.tools and create that next great innovation.
Rwanda is a shining example of how the global community can come together and rebuild a country after a devastating genocide. But there is still more that needs to be done. In the rural villages, students are crowded into schools with no electricity, no running water, no internet access, and limited sanitation. Will these kids be ready to continue the rebuilding of Rwanda, or will they be dependent upon others? Through education and employment, boys and girls have an equally promising future that can transform their struggling communities. For $20 a month, a child can be educated and a community strengthened. By supporting Pioneer Education Africa, a 501c3 charity, you partner with others to provide education that will prepare a generation to take on the task of self-reliance. 100% of the proceeds received go directly to the education of the children. Visit pioneereducationafrica.com to find out more.